it's creepy, but if you look at what everybody was doing, they were all like being good Samaritans.
Right, they're trying to fix the world.
The horror elements in this episode were fantastic.
And I love that like juxtaposition of it's spread with love. It's spread via a kiss. They grab your face, pull you in, and just...
Today, Sterling and I are talking about the thrilling science fiction TV show, Pluribus, Season 1, Episode 1 on Apple TV.
So spoilers are ahead.
We are discussing our overall thoughts on the episode.
This virus that kicks everything off.
A fresh take on the apocalypse.
All the interesting ideas and questions that emerge from that.
As well as talking about our deeply saddened and unlikely hero.
So without further ado, let's get into the episode. Mark, what are your overall thoughts?
Well, we really liked the show. We thought it was great. There were...
We loved it too.
We loved it. It was so great. We, as a collective, we very much enjoyed it. We were all very excited that there was a little shout out to Fort Collins right in the beginning. That's where I'm from. That's where I live. So I loved seeing that moment. But overall, just really hyped about this show. The attention to detail, the shots were stunning. The writing is tight. Everything about this show is so good. I'm glad we got to see a very slow burn to like how it all started, and like it took its time to really lay that out. So
it's
great.
Funny. It started off. I mean, like the pacing was kind of slow burn, but having that timer in the beginning, and it's like that super bold font adds literal weight to it, and so it feels like something is very serious is going to happen. I think that bought them time to be able to start slowly.
Yeah. Well, and even with that timer right off the rip, it was like over a year of time. And I was like, oh, this is going to like, it's going to take a minute before we get to the actual infection. If we're over a year out and we're already getting hints of what's going on, like this is going to take forever. But the way that they did it, and it makes more sense of like them discovering it, developing it, and it like makes sense in the world of like of Pluribus, of how we got to what we saw at the end, which was great. And
great.
Yeah, I loved
absolutely
the visual storytelling of pretty much the entire episode was great at just not directly telling you things, but like visually being like, this is what we're seeing, this is what's happening.
Yeah, this isn't spoon feeding, this isn't hand holding. I think this is definitely lean forward TV. You know, there were small details where if you're not paying close attention, you could easily miss it. And I think that those small details and like the tension that they built pulled you forward. You didn't want to miss anything. And so you're just riveted on what is going on. And I absolutely love it. So let's talk about the cause of this apocalypse, you know, this thing that starts it all, this RNA sequence.
Yeah, well, we theorized, you and I both had our episode that came out where we kind of theorized what was going on. And in a weird way, all of our theories were right. It was a radio transmission from space.
Right.
It was a virus that was created. And seems like a hive mind aspect.
Right. So I think that's bingo. That's like the whole line.
They're all correct. So, I mean, there is like a lot of like intrigue of like, why are they broadcasting this? It does seem like that the people that are infected don't understand what's going on, but they ultimately enjoy it, it seems.
Yeah. Yeah. I loved the aspect that it was broadcast. So like here are some of the things that I kind of think about. Like the very first thing that it did once it got out was trying to multiply and spread as quickly as possible and as efficiently as possible before it could get caught. And to me, this is we can call it a virus. They like technically said it's like not a virus, but I think that's easier to go with. You know, viruses are things that replicate. They may not self-replicate. They don't do it on their own. They hijack our bodies or animals' bodies. They hijack the system and use that to create as many replicants as possible. But there's only so much space you can fill up inside of that. At some point, you either need to spread because like you run out of space for your replications, or the very act of replicating damages the body enough that you are potentially going to kill it, and you need to get to other hosts. So it's not just about hijacking the system and replicating, it's also about spreading to other hosts, and that's why maybe it gets into your lungs and attaches to droplets and becomes aerosol. Maybe it's one of those things that like gets you all mucusy, so you're like constantly cleaning your nose and now it's all over your hands, and literally everything you touch with your hands, you're now kind of infecting. And to me, this seemed like whether it was engineered or evolved, like the most evolved version of a virus where it's figured out how to use intelligence to spread. So not just like through mucus, but by like the aliens that sent this message, they may not have created this. It's possible that like they get infected, and then because it like works on your intelligence and it makes you want to spread it, that these aliens sent that transmission basically as like following the instructions of the virus. Like it was a very efficient spreading machine.
Yeah, well, and then to your point, like that would make sense, because if they get everybody on Earth, right, and they've spread to everyone, then like what's the goal? Like what's the next thing that you would do there? So like it does make sense that like, because I was thinking about like, okay, so they're all happy, or they're all working together, they're all in this psychic hive mind net. Now what? Like once, if they were able to get these last 12 people to change as well, then what's the next goal? And I would assume they would be trying to design something. We heard the one scientist in the beginning say that it took a lot of power to project this code. So I'm assuming that would be their next goal, is to just like build a crazy amount of power. Planet. Yeah. And I don't even know if they're hopping. Like what happens to the people when they're there? Like one interesting thing I noticed is it does seem like they want to keep these bodies preserved in a way. Like we saw the guy with the chopped off leg who looked like he was getting help to go get it sewed back on. Also, the guy, I forget his name, Tandy, was it? Ray Tandy?
I don't remember.
The USDA guy.
Oh, yeah.
He takes a drink of water. So it's like they still have to like replenish these bodies and keep them fed and maintain. But like, say they get that goal of sending it off to the next planet. What is the purpose of them on this planet? Like, what are they going to do? What are they going to try to achieve? Like, these are all things I'm very curious about with this psychic network.
Right. Well, I mean, in the end, if it is just, I mean, technically, if it's, virus-like, then it's like non-living. But I think viruses and other non-living things like still have very similar aspects to life, where life is such a driving force that any genetic sequence that doesn't have the will or like the desire or like the strength to survive weeds itself out of longevity. Like if you don't, if you don't want to survive, then you very likely aren't going to live long enough to spread your genes. And so it's like, there may not even be a reason for this.
Oh, I just had a quick question for you. Okay, so my one question is specifically like the way that this infects.
Yes.
Do we think that there are some people that like, as soon as they get infected, they just succumb to the infection? Or is it that like, because we did see people that were dying from it, or is it when they were infected, what they were doing at the time, did that end up killing them? Like, so like the case in point is Helen.
Yeah.
Right? Like, so if you look at Helen, when she got infected, she fell and hit her head on cement. Like she went flat. Like there could be brain damage. And like, as it's like trying to take over, she's still alive because the virus can kind of keep her alive for a minute. But then she ultimately succumbed to it. But then we see like the neighbor that got taken out and like piles of bodies. Did those people just die from what they were doing? Or because the virus can kill people that are not quite aligned with it.
Yeah, I thought that same kind of thing, because there definitely is the possibility of both, you know. Even if you're in your house, I mean, that could be another situation like Helen, where they fell back and hit their head on like the corner of a table, you know, and so
Right.
it was like a very, very thin spot, you know, that's like putting pressure in like one spot with like all of your body's weight. They could have fallen in the shower. They could have been, you know, taking a bath and like drowned. There's a lot of ways that people could just naturally die, but it also could be that there's, you know, in trying to take over, just like viruses in our world, that, you know, in trying to replicate, in trying to spread, that they damage the body, and that sometimes it is harmful to people. You know, if you have weak lungs, maybe this virus that like attacks your respiratory system is more likely to kill you. So it could be either way. And I'm interested. What I think is kind of interesting is that I don't know how much any of this stuff matters. Like all of the questions that we're asking about, you know, was this created by an alien species, or did it just like evolve? You know, like why did it get sent to us? Was it, you know, is it a weapon, or, you know, was it just like that it wanted to replicate and spread? Why did some people die and why did some people not? I don't think this show is a mystery like Severance. And you actually said this when we talked about Pluribus, you know, before it came out, was that it wasn't originally going to be sci-fi. He was trying to do this without sci-fi. And it wasn't until he realized that he couldn't do it without it being sci-fi that he made it sci-fi. So I don't think the mystery is important, and there may not be a need to give us answers. They may give us answers at some point, but they also may never do it, because I think the more interesting thing is what this has done to our world is going to open a Pandora's box of just interesting questions.
Yeah.
And like put people into situations that you couldn't see otherwise, and kind of like shine a spotlight on some of these great questions. And so I think that is honestly the important thing, is what it does to the world versus why it happened.
Yeah, sure. I completely don't think we're going to get a lot of the outside stuff. Like we'll probably never touch on why the radio signal is good. And maybe we will. Like in 2 seasons, that there is a chance that this society builds a way to interact with that message, which is completely plausible with their shared hive network mind. But I do think that one of the like more interesting aspects of this is that like towards the end of that politician talking to Carol, he was like, your life is your own, but we're going to do everything to fix you. So like, it's this, like, I do see a lot of like tension being built, a mystery of like Carol resisting joining this hive mind network, and versus like this hive mind network trying everything in their power to get Carol to join them. So I do find that this is a very interesting thing that we will see, like an interesting dynamic of like that will build tension, and like almost that's more of the mystery of like what we're uncovering is like, will Carol join? Can she reverse these people?
Right. Yeah.
Because we do know that Carol is this like hero. She's going to go on maybe this like hero's journey that she doesn't really want to go on. She's thrusted upon her. Like we were talking about in our previous episode, that Vince was talking about actually writing a hero character, like somebody that you're rooting for. And so like I could see her trying to break this neural network and potentially stopping what's going on.
Yeah. When you mentioned the guy, Davis Taffler.
Davis Taffler, that's his name.
When you mentioned him and kind of like saying that your life is your own, but also we're going to try and take that autonomy away from you. You know, it's that I feel like that was a big part of so much of this, is like the juxtaposition between two very different things. I think we saw that a lot. So let's talk about the apocalypse. Like, let's dig deeper into it, what this is like, and the possible horror aspects. I first want to say that this is such a great, fresh take on the apocalypse. Having this different perspective, this different lens, really changes your view of so much. And I absolutely love this framing device of this thing that causes happiness and potentially takes away free will. It's great.
Oh my gosh. The horror elements in this episode were fantastic. From the very beginning of when she first got infected by the mouse, it just like, there was like that tension of like, oh, this mouse is dead. What's going on? To like her body convulsing. And like just the creepy, not really talking to anybody as they pass the virus. It's very, like you mentioned before, like the invasion of the body snatchers, which just feels like these are not real entities and they're kind of working together, and we don't know what their motives are, but they clearly want to continue reproducing. And that shot that had them all lined up just in unison, just doing the swabbing their cheek, putting it on the agar, packing it. And like that, I feel like created such a chilling scene of just like, they're all in unison, perfect, like every aspect of it. They know what they're doing. They are proficient at it, and they are good at spreading whatever this is. And I like that gave me the creeps.
It was so efficient. Like from, when the countdown first started, it's over a year from the moment to like what you were describing, within the first person getting infected to infecting, about like 10-ish total, not a lot. Like it was so efficient, so organized, and like, step one, infect just enough people to have what you need to be able to create this system that will allow you to infect the masses before you can even be detected, before you can be detected so they can try to stop you. It's going to get everybody. And it was just like, it's over before it started. There was nothing anybody could do.
No. And there was like one quick scene. So like we kind of saw that this was transpiring. And then when Carol and Helen are at the bar having a drink and they go out to have a smoke, right on the TV, there was like one thing that was like military base lockdown, which for just that one moment, you're kind of like, oh, maybe something. And like, it's blink and you miss it. Like,
right.
But maybe somebody's trying to get a hold on it. And then like instantly it's over. Everybody's done. Infected.
And I love that like juxtaposition of how terrifying they made this whole thing. But they did it oftentimes with very innocuous things that would seem harmless in and of themselves. So it's like Jen licking the donuts. Like, yeah, that's like creepy and gross, but it's pretty harmless, unless she has like Ebola. And in this case, it is so harmful. Or, if you compare this to, this is kind of like a zombie, movie. They've kind of lost their minds and something else has taken over. But instead of being spread with something aggressive like a bite, it's spread with love. It's spread via a kiss. They grab your face, pull you in, and just give you a nice kiss.
The kiss of death.
The kiss of death. It's such a great juxtaposition of, something that should be harmless to something that kills. Free will.
100%. And oh my gosh, just the way that the terror was built, even though nothing was like you're saying, like zombies happen, you see a gross dead person, they're chasing you, they're coming after you. And like the beginning of this one, like as soon as everybody starts getting affected, it was just like, you could hear the music playing in the bar as they were outside having a smoke. And as soon as that guy hits that car, the music stops. So everything just went silent after that. Carol is trying to figure out what's going on. And just the slow like build to like moving from scene to scene and just seeing these people that are convulsing and just like frozen in place was just so terrifying. I was feeling so like uncomfortable for Carol because like if that happened, like just seeing these people that are just like all convulsing everywhere. You go to the hospital, people are convulsing. You see wreckage everywhere. Like that is terrifying, and you're the only one not affected by it. Like, what do you do in that situation?
I know the like roller coaster of like from that moment where everybody gets infected, probably until she's like talking to the guy on the TV, is just nonstop tension and release, you know? So it's like she's worried that Helen is going to be dead and she can't get her car to work. But then she does get this other car. She's driving, she hears a siren. It's like, oh, I'm saved. Of course, it's like down police car. You know, she gets to the hospital. It's like, this is it. But it's filled with all these things. And then the like tiny bits of tension that they can create of like the baby getting closer to the edge. And because you don't have a full grasp of like what is going on, they were able to have these moments that it seemed like anything could happen. And so when something weird happened, you think the worst, even though the worst doesn't happen in most of those cases. So it's like when she's driving and two people start like running towards the car, I was like, holy crap, they're going to like overtake the car. They're going to like pull her out of it. And like, no, they're just running to the bus in order to put out the fire.
Which that scene was so crazy. Okay, because like that is, I've seen that kind of scene in many like apocalyptic or like even The Last of Us had a good scene with that where like you see the chaos that's happening behind the driver as the driver is trying to escape. And yet it's creepy. But if you look at what everybody was doing, they were all like being good Samaritans.
Right. They're trying to fix the world. There's like...
Right.
All these fires, there's like all these people that got hurt and like they're trying to triage and fix everything at once. It's once again with the juxtaposition of, you know, it's so creepy, so horror driven, but everybody's doing good.
Right. All of the actual acts that they are doing are like kind things. Like they're all working together. It's like at the hospital, you know, another thing that really built like the horror was that flashing, the street light that was just like nonstop flashing. It creates this like air of like things are not okay here. And yet it seemed like the hospital people were going to help the ambulance driver that had crashed into that pole. You know, they're taking the guy with the cut off leg, putting out fires. I see somebody running with a fire extinguisher. Like they were all, nothing was nefarious about it, but yet it still was so horrific and creepy.
Yes, that I love it. Another one of the great moments that has that kind of like juxtaposition is the two creepy kids, right? You know, she can probably overtake two creepy kids. They shouldn't really be a threat, but like what they know about her is creepy. The way that they talk in unison is creepy. And then I love the moment when she finally shouts, "Leave me alone, please." And they say, "Sure, Carol, just give us a couple minutes to clear out." And they say it so cheerily. And you don't know what's going to happen next. And like in my head, I'm thinking a couple minutes, just go in your house. You don't need a couple minutes. But then you see why they said it. Everybody clears out. They took it as an order for everybody. And even though they're being so nice and so like warm and like, sure, you want us to leave? We're all going to leave. There is something so threatening about how coordinated that was. Like, if they can do that all at once, you just tell these two kids and like everybody knows, what could they do for bad?
Right. You're being told that you're safe, you're okay, your life is your own, but you can see that like the president adjacent can contact you. Everything is set up for you. At any moment they could do anything. Like that is horrifying. That is like I'm safe, but how am I safe? This does not feel safe. This feels like danger, danger, danger.
And I feel like the one time, like they keep saying things like, you know, you're safe. We don't mean you harm. Sorry, whatever. There was one though, you know, when she said, "What will you do if I say no?" And David dodged that question. Instead of saying nothing, he instead starts to say, but he gets cut off. But it sounded like he was going to say like, look, if you only knew what this was, you would opt into it. But that's not answering the question of, but what are you going to do if I say no?
Right. They could easily turn on her. And that's Carol versus the world at that point.
Yes. Yes.
So, okay. there is an interesting thing related with the kids, and remind me that guy's name, David Tafferson?
Davis. Not
Davis
David.
Tafferson. Oh,
Davis
sorry.
Taffler. Davis Taffler.
Okay. So the kids and Davis Taffler. So this also lends a little credence to maybe that like Helen died because she hit her head. She's like, how do you know my name? Can you read my thoughts? And at first you're like, well, okay. He says no, they can't read your thoughts, but Carol is a famous book person, like a author. So clearly people know who she is. So it's not like, oh, who is this random stranger? But the kids knew about the key that she hid. And so to me, the way that they would know that is because Helen knew that. And so there was a moment that they got information from Helen being connected for a brief second. Because like you see the convulsions, she stops convulsing, and then she succumbs to the death. So like there was a moment that they were in Helen's thoughts that will know intimate details about Carol that they would not know otherwise. So
I think you're right.
I do think that that's how they knew about the key, because that seemed like, oh, I can't read your thoughts, but I know that you hid this key here. How would they know? Like, because only the two people that would know that would be Carol and Helen. And maybe Helen didn't even know. Maybe they're lying about not reading her thoughts.
You know, I didn't think that they were lying about the reading minds thing. I don't think that's necessary. I was kind of thinking that, like, if you have the knowledge of everybody in the world minus 12 people, you know, maybe there's like a nosy neighborhood watch person on the block that saw, you know, the time that like they got locked out and they decided to like hide the key. And it would just take one of those people seeing that for that now to be everybody's knowledge. You know, only one person alive needs to know who Helen is and who Carol is, and boom, everybody else knows it. But I do think you're probably right that it wasn't like somebody having seen it. Instead, it's like Helen was linked for a moment before she died.
Another harebrain theory, how they could have known. So I think the mice were definitely infected with this thing, right? Like there's no outwardly, other than the convulsions, which I guess they're not going to explain with the mice. It does seem like they were infected. They had knowledge of like how to spread it. Like the rat played dead to be able to bite the person to spread it. Does that mean the psychic net connects through the rats? And if so, when they did these chemtrails to drop this virus to all of these people, are animals affected? And so if our animals affected, can they neural network with these animals? Same with bugs. Maybe a bug crawled under a rock, saw the key, can relay that information. I know that one's a way out there theory, but once they had the mice introduced that they had it, my brain was like, are they psychically connected with the mice? Can they communicate with animals? Are they experiencing what animals are? Like, are we going to see a scene where like a bunch of dogs walk up to Carol and like bark in like a musical number or something because they can't talk? I don't know. I don't know, but it is an idea, a possibility that they could play with in the future.
Yeah. You know, I assume that the mice were infected, and I didn't even think about whether or not they could communicate, you know, with the animals. We'll see. And that could definitely be something that like amps up the tension. That could be something that they like wait a while before they make that connection. And then finally, after making that connection, you know, she's out somewhere at nighttime and you see like the two eyes of an animal and you realize that you're being watched. You know, that like this can extend so much more than what humans can do. So that definitely can amp it up. But what I was kind of thinking about with like the mice was that, you know, that like maybe it was evolving inside of them and like trying to figure out a way to spread. And so, you know, like each evolution is trying something different, and most of those don't do anything. And it's not until the one that like plays dead that it is able to do it. But man, it's great. I love this.
I do too. I'm so excited for this show.
Let's talk about our unlikely and unhappy hero, Carol Sturka.
I'm ready to give her an Emmy already. Ray? Seahorn? Emmy. Great performance. Just a phenomenal performance right off the bat. Just want to say that. I loved her in Better Call Saul. I didn't finish Better Call Saul. I'm halfway through it. But she's phenomenal in that. And she just brings a whole nother level to this very different role. I loved that we got so much of her story without a ton of dialogue. Like she wasn't like, oh, I'm just this unhappy writer or whatever. You know, they tell us that she's in a relationship.
Show don't tell.
Yeah, they tell us, like, my favorite part of this episode was how they told us they were in a relationship. Because at first she just seems like her manager, right? It's, she's her manager. She's going on tour with her, of course, whatever. But clearly Carol is upset by the rat race of writing these books and dealing with these fans, that it's just kind of like very shallow, just people that are liking this very shallow book. And so she's exhausted from it. And just having Helen reach for her hand, then you're like, they're together. And I thought, and then we don't have to linger on it. We don't have to beat a dead horse about it. But that's how we knew they're together. And that when she's infected, all of the emotion tied to that was all from that little handhold, which was phenomenal storytelling.
Yeah, and similar to that, you see the kind of things that people do when they're in a great relationship where they don't always have to communicate things, you know. Carol can take one look at that book stand and Helen knows what's wrong and knows what she needs to do to fix it. You know, like that's the kind of thing that comes with years together. And I love there's great subtext in this. And potentially one of the saddest moments for me is something that maybe this is just in my head, but when the two of them are smoking in the parking lot and Helen asks about the comment and she says, you know, well, will you answer this one about the real inspiration for whatever the male character's name was? And she says something like, want to tell the truth? Like, could it hurt? And in my head, I think that like she's a romance author who's, you know, potentially lesbian, queer, something like that, maybe, but writing about a very heterosexual relationship. So she might be closeted. And this might be her partner asking, hey, these people love you. Like, why don't you open up to them? Maybe that can make you happy. And she brushes her off and she's like, George Clooney.
It's safer. It's safer.
Yeah.
I think she might be closeted to her fans. I don't, you know, seeing her relationship with Helen, I don't think she's like closeted herself where she's like, I don't know what I am. Because I think
No, but to the public. Yeah, she knows. 100%. She knows inside. But that's probably one of the things that makes her unhappy is that she can't be who she wants to be. She is this person who feels this thing about women, but then she plays this other part in the public. So she can't be who she wants to be. She feels like she's a serious person that like could write these great serious books, but she's writing this like silly, meaningless stuff. And so I think that's part of her unhappiness is like what she has to portray to make a living and the life that she has to live so that she can try and be happy on the side. But I think that's what drives her unhappiness is like, she's doing this thing to live a good life so she can like have money, you know, and like have a positive life. But it's the very stuff that's like stifling her. Right.
She feels like she's not really contributing anything. It's just slop, like her words, slop crap that's just consumed by the masses. But I love, like, we got so little of it, but I loved their relationship. And I hope that this show does some flashbacks because I thought Helen was great. But it like just seeing that like you mentioned at that stop where she knew how to switch the books and how she was her manager and she reached out her hand and, you know, that conversation in the bar where, you know, Carol is having a hard time with this book and that she has been working on this side book for a very long time and like really perfecting it and seeming like she doesn't want to showcase it and not ready to show it. And like Helen was her like hype man and be like, we can make this work. Like we can get this out. And I think people will love it because you wrote it. Like such a hype man. And then like, you know, with her dynamic of helping her with this, you know, talking about that George Clooney thing. And once she got infected and watching Carol fight so hard to save her, like they didn't tell us they were in a relationship outright. Very minimal dialogue between them about like who they are together. Just the things that they showed us made her fight to save Helen so like nail biting. Like, is she going to save her? Like, and ultimately I think that the trailers, we knew that Helen was not going to, we didn't know if she was going to be infected or if she was going to make it out alive. But I feel like we did know that she was not going to be in Carol's life after this. And I think that made that whole scene of her dragging her and getting her into the truck and trying to get the stretcher and fighting off these zombies to not touch her. And it just made all of that so impactful and like so endearing to Carol and Helen's relationship that we saw like maybe 5 minutes of screen time on.
Yeah. And the writing is so good because like these are very complex characters. They come off very real. They're not just, she could have easily been written as a caricature because to a certain extent, she's going to seem like the extreme being against all these happy people. But she is so much more than that, And on the official podcast, Vince Gilligan said that when she's bad mouthing the fans, some people are going to think that that's like her being fake when she's around them. And he said that it represents more of like her duality, and I think that a lot of people, like when you said that doing all that stuff like exhausts her, I think that you could love a lot of that in the moment. You can love what it affords you. You can even appreciate those fans maybe in the moment, but then you can have these other feelings about the same thing. And I think that's, a duality is probably, it might be more a reflection of her own unhappiness that she's like putting on her fans rather than like really feeling that way. Like I think that she wants to do this serious stuff. And so when she's like exhausted at the bar, blames it on her fans and are like, they're loving this drivel. And it's like, you wrote the drivel. Like,
right.
It's like, don't blame them. They're not the ones that like poured however many hours and hours into this thing. Like they're great, complex characters. And I'm so excited. Like, I think that doing that, I think they're going to be able to explore great questions and do it from a very interesting perspective. I think that her unhappiness and her point of view are going to potentially lead her to make very difficult decisions that I don't think that most of us would probably make. And I think they'll bring up great questions to us, that like being put in that position, because already they've asked great questions. Like, I feel like seeing her struggle with happiness, I kind of wonder like what is happiness and what's important? Like she's working so she can be happy, so she can live a happy life, have wealth, but she's not happy. Would it be better to do the thing that makes her happy, like write this like serious book, even if she's not understood and loved for it? Like, would that be more fulfilling? Like, what would you want? Like, what about the society? Like, happiness there? Like, what if you could get all the happiness that you want, and all you have to do is just give up your freedom?
Give up your individuality.
Yes.
Yeah.
Your individuality. Yeah.
Because then it's like, if everybody's feeling the same way, is it really happiness? If you're always feeling happiness? Because like one thing I think, this is a little philosophical with like the idea of happiness, right? It's like, if everything was happy all the time, then you wouldn't have anything to compare that to. So happiness would be baseline neutral at that point. And so like the importance of like happiness is juxtaposing it with times of sadness. Like there have been times when I've been down and sad and I've been able to enjoy the happy moments because I know what sadness is. I can have the opposite reaction. And so it is interesting that if a society is completely happy all the time, is that really an emotion that they're experiencing? And so I think that with this duality of Carol and this ultimate happiness, it's got some great questions. I know some people might bag on Carol for being mean to the fans, but I thought that the way that when they showed her interacting with her fans, even though she might be frustrated with what she's doing, she did seem to have a sense of care for these fans. Like, she was taking pictures, signing, she was engaging with them. Like, she was never rude or short like some celebrities can be when they meet their fans. Like, there was the one lady that was like, Raban's not on the cover. He's always on the cover. Like, if he's not in it, like, I'm not going to read, like, this will be done for me. And she knows that she's going to read it and find out that Raban's in it no matter what. But the fact that she did like, 218,
Right,
page 218, like, it'll be fine. And so it's like, that to me shows that, like, she does care about her fans. Like, her fan had already bought the book. She was planning to read it, but she could see that her fan was like nervous to read this book, that it might disappoint her. And she still was like, it's okay. I got you. Like, so I do feel like there is a huge sense of care from Carol that is, even though she might be frustrated with her life and what's going on, I don't think she hates her fans. And I think ultimately, like, we'll see, she might be frustrated with the world and people as a whole. I think that this will bring out potential positive for her to realize that I do want to help these people. I want to save these people. I want to try to like live in this world in a way that is positive. So I'm very excited for the show.
and you can feel both things, like you can absolutely love some of the energy that fans bring to you, where they like get you, like, their love for your work can get you so excited about it, but also sometimes how hardcore they can be about it can also be exhausting at the same time. The guy that's all dressed up, these books are not that serious, and yet he's explaining why, this type of ship wouldn't really have this
These
kind
two
of mass. Like,
when are we going to see a movie of this?
Right. It's like, it's a ship that sails on purple sand. And here you are talking about the fact that we wouldn't see this type of mast on this type of ship. Like, the energy can be great, but like, there's bad with good, like,
Right.
In order to get the happiness that you get from those fans, potentially, there's going to be the extremes of that, of like the people who take it too far and kind of like exhaust your social battery. So I think you can have both.
Agreed. Yeah. I think that she's a good protagonist to have to go through this. Like, she's a complicated person. She might not be the most altruistic or not, or maybe she is, we don't know. But I think that having a protagonist like this is going to really help the dynamic of this story and create really interesting, thought-provoking ideas.
Yeah.
One last little thing.
Yeah.
This is maybe just an oddball theory, but it struck a chord
theories
to me.
Yes.
When Davis Taffler was saying, if you need anything, hit 0, reach out to us. Cellular networks are down. Why are cellular networks down?
I could see this going to what you mentioned of like, if they want to spread, they need to hop off this world. And if power is important, that's like, you don't need cellular networks if you have a hive mind.
Right.
That's my guess.
But see, here's the thing. So like, to me, I'm thinking about it of like, okay, so they're still like maybe running a society to like achieve things, right? Like maybe they got to keep food production to like feed this giant hive thing. A lot of people don't have landlines in their house anymore. And to easily communicate with these people, I guess you don't need to with the hive mind, but like, I mean, I guess you're right. Like it might be easier to run a landline than a cellular line.
The power consumption of a cellular network has got to be insane. So it's like, we don't need it. And if she asks anybody for their landline, they'll say, sure. So even if she didn't have one, that'd be fine.
Okay.
She could borrow anybody's.
But then in that regard, couldn't she just like find somebody and talk to them and be like, hey, I need this? Why have the landlines running?
Maybe that's the whole like, well, I mean, she just kicked everybody out of the neighborhood, and that's the whole 24/7 thing. If in the middle she wakes up at 6 a.m. and she's got questions about what's going on,
she doesn't have to walk out and leave.
She doesn't have to go somewhere to find out. She can just pick up the phone because she may not feel safe at this point. So maybe she feels much safer, and giving that illusion of, hey, we're whatever you want. We'll back off. We'll give you space. You can contact us through the phone.
Okay, now I have one more question.
Okay.
That just came to my mind.
Sure.
Okay, so we know it's like a hive mind.
Yeah.
And this code that's being projected throughout space, right? Is that hive mind connected to the previous hive minds? It doesn't seem like it. It seems like you still don't really know what's going on.
Yeah.
And so ultimately, like, if you're trying to replicate and spread, you would technically be not replicating yourself or your own, like if you look at it from Earth's perspective, from like starting now, they're going to try to project to the next group or whatever. That would technically be a different entity than you.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I think that's an important feature. Like that allows for evolution potentially. You know, if like each planet can house its own version and they can think differently because they have different hosts and they can try different things, then whichever version of it is most successful can be the one that spreads the most. And, you know, like over time, this RNA sequence could change and there could be variants of it that like overtake other variants, more powerful, smarter, better at spreading at it, you know, like that's just potentially time and evolution, maybe.
but then it's also, there's an interesting aspect of it because there's like reproducing that way, right?
Yeah.
But like, wouldn't they also be able to reproduce by physically having more children? So like there's like multiple ways to reproduce. And it would seem that if you had more children, they would be connected to this psychic network, where versus if you're reproducing to just spread out somewhere else, like
how quickly can, so like once this signal hit the Earth, within a year of being discovered, they had basically the population of the Earth.
But
like that
also, if you think about that first message, they don't know how long it was being sent to.
Yeah.
And we don't know, like, if you're sending that message out, how do you know anybody's receiving it? And so like, and if it does get picked up, how do you know you're even reproducing at that point?
Yeah.
So I mean, I guess I know I don't think we'll get answers to this, but it's just like where my brain is going, where I'm like, how is this a reproduction strategy of these things? It's my biology mind. It's, you know.
Yeah. It still scratches a little bit of that like severance itch. Like I don't think that they're not going to like keep bringing up all of these questions. And so in fact, they haven't really brought up these questions. They haven't like pointed them out. There are things that have emerged, like that you and I and other people are noticing that we're asking, but it's not like they pointed the camera at it hard and are like, what's going on with this? So it's hard not to ask these questions, hard not to theorize about it.
Yeah.
But I do think that it's not going to be the main focus. And I think that as bigger questions unfold, like ethical questions, ethical ideas, this character study of this interesting character in this wild situation, I think as those rise to the top, I think some of the other stuff will become almost like the norm.
Yeah.
You know, and just may not feel like it matters as much. But I do still like asking those. Like, I also thought about, you know, like, is it really 12 people? Or what about those isolated tribes? You know, which I guess if they have planes fly over top, they could get them too. But like, did they get every isolated tribe in every area, you know, that doesn't have outside human contact? Or were those not really thought about and kind of written off because they're not connected? You know, like how does this work?
Yeah.
And just like kicking that around in my brain, even though I know that like that is not important to this story if they get every isolated group, you know? Sure.
I do think that it could be interesting, and maybe not this season, to dive into the motivation of this virus, or like I think there could be some interesting stories they could delve into, and maybe not. I don't know. What do you guys think? Tell us what you think, if where they're going to go with the motivation of this virus.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on the questions it's asking, on Carol, on this like horror aspect of this first episode? You know, your thoughts on where the rest of the series is going to go. We'd love to hear from you. My last thing, I just wanted to say, like, I love that this whole scenario to me feels very much like the monkey's paw. It's like
Oh.
the wish that's granted, but like at what cost, because this is a utopia. Look at how great the world was at acting together. As soon as somebody saw the burning bus, everybody knew it, which means that whoever was closest that saw, that knows where like the fire extinguishers were can grab that and run. Like that was so efficient.
Oh, yeah. Very efficient.
How quickly they're able to deal with all of this. And all of your worries and your cares just melt away. No prisons, nothing. But it's like, what's the cost? And is that okay?
I don't know. I don't know. But until next time, thank you for joining along with us. We look forward to dissecting Pluribus with you. Next episode, we will be diving into episode 2, and we will be doing a special live episode after episode 4. We will be interacting with you guys, with your comments, dissecting theories, just kind of melting pot of ideas. And so we're looking forward to that. So we hope you can join us. More details on that to follow, but will be most likely after episode 4. Until then, I'm Mark. This is Sterling.
Thanks.